What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Odd Popcorn for that review. I'm Chris.
And I'm Nick.
And guys, if you're just joining us for the first time on this video, we'd love to have you as a subscriber. But today we're talking about a movie called No One Will Save You. So this is, I believe, the directorial debut. No, second movie. There's another one called Spontaneous. But first I've heard of from Brian Duffield. And it's just went straight to Hulu, just released on the 22nd. Um, It's very much a horror sci-fi, and it is very much an alien invasion movie slash home invasion movie, but certainly an alien invasion movie. Um, Man, I have a lot to say about it. I want to know what you think about it, though. I'm curious.
All right, so going into it, like I did not I watched the trailer and I was like, okay, yeah, this looks pretty interesting. I might like this. But I was not expecting it to be practically a silent movie. Beside like no spoken dialogue except for from the main character, I think one time during the whole movie, and then there's like some people in the background, and even then you don't know what they're saying. It's just kind of mumbling and
And alien dialogue.
an alien dialogue, like clicking and
Yeah,
throat noises. But yeah, I liked it. It had its problems, which I will get into, I'm sure. But like for the most part, it was pretty entertaining. Like the aliens were pretty creepy looking, like their character, their monster design, creature design. Uh,
hmm,
I did like how like not every single one of them looked the same. Like it seemed like they each kind of had their different roles or something.
yeah. And so this is my favorite kind of flawed movie. Like
Hmm.
it's not perfect at all, but they went for it. They swung and they did something ambitious. I will say in the very beginning when you first see the aliens and they look like stereotypical grays, uh, there was a minute there where I was like, you could have done so much more with it. But then I thought about it and I kind of came around on it. And then certainly by the end of it, I've come around on it. And then I actually read about what the director was saying about this, and it's kind of like, yeah, I could have done a lot of different things, and I could have gone really crazy directions with it, but a lot of other people have done that, and once in a while you just want he the way he equated it to was like if there was a ton of dinosaur movies coming out and none of them have a T-Rex, no T-Rexes, no T-Rexes, no T-Rexes, eventually you just want to see the T-Rex.
Yeah.
And he was like, I think it was about time to just see some grays, just straight up they look like grays.
Yeah, and
And
I
they are.
was slightly worried it was going to be one of those movies that you never see the alien until like the end of the movie, but they get into it pretty
Far
quick.
from it. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you see once, and that's the other thing he said is like, I wanted you to be able to. Her home's being invaded, and pretty soon you see that it's an alien. She sees it's an alien. She knows, you know, the everybody knows now what we're dealing with. So now we can go on with the story and not spend any time making sure you know.
Right.
And then also it gives you a framework from which to understand the other creatures that look less like. The first thing we see is this humanoid gray, and the other creatures we see are different sizes, different shapes, and things like that. They all kind of have a look about them, but they are different. And I think it made sense to start with the humanoid one.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea of having like no dialogue, man, is crazy. And it actually took me a long time to even notice that that's what they're doing. But it's like, oh yeah, she hasn't said anything.
I think it worked though. I mean,
Mm-hmm. No,
it
it's effective.
I think it added to the tension and stuff. So like most of the tension from the movie comes from the soundtrack at that point basically, and it I thought it was really good.
The sound design is really good here. Like a lot of low vibrating sounds that have a lot of like power to them and feel really like ominous and threatening and serious. Like you gotta like this thing's bigger than you and more powerful than you, and you gotta know it. It's so
Mhm.
deep and like booming and everything. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of like beams, like different beams that can move and lift things and stuff like that. And it seems like the red one is the real one you gotta watch out for. Like they're really if they got the red one on you, things are about to get heinous.
Yeah.
But he did say everything here was like one ecosystem, like one planet. So the humanoids are working with these like long armed, short little like more animalistic creatures and this giant like I want to say like praying mantis reminiscent,
Yeah, but extremely long limbs. The thing's probably like
extremely long limbs,
20 feet tall or something.
a lot of joints in them, like
Yeah.
more joints than
It
normal,
reminded me of
and
like a air traffic controller guy because it seemed like he was kind of calling the spaceship like doing that too.
Yeah, their movement is very his movement during that was like borderline funny, but I know they weren't going for funny. And this movie does usually, I think it's able to maintain like its ominous thing, even though like there's a couple little moments like that that you could almost see as a little goofy, but it's in this movie that's otherwise so creepy that it works.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, he's like summoning the ships with these different movements and everything. But yeah, the scene where she is pinned to the ceiling with that red beam, and I guess this gets spoilery. I mean, you probably should just go see this movie. It's on Hulu. Like, you should watch it and come back and see what you know. But like the scene where she's pinned to the ceiling and that humanoid alien like levitates up and regurgitates this disgusting looks like a sea anemone or something like that almost.
Hmm.
And that goes into her mouth, and then she like it's almost like a dream. She like wakes up in her bed, and you almost for a second, I almost thought that was going to be the end of the movie, and that would have been disappointing.
Yeah.
Is like it's all a dream. But this is actually, and I thought this was handled really well too. This is actually her inside of the sort of hallucination that they put you in when this thing is in your throat, like controlling you for them or puppeting you for them. Um, so she's like hallucinating this interaction with her friend from childhood, and this so I thought this was handled great. And you might want to, I'm sure you'll want to interject here and say something about this, but like the whole thing is sort of the background of all of this is there's something going on with her that we don't know the whole story of, and certainly because there's no dialogue, we're only going to get it we're not going to get this handed to us. So you just know that she's got a friend that died 10 years ago, and she's been writing letters to her, uh, you know, to the great, to the, from beyond
Hmm.
or whatever. And I didn't really read enough of that to piece much of it together, except that, I can't believe it's been this long and love you and, miss you and whatever. Maybe, and I'm sorry here and there, but I don't even remember that. I just remember, you just
Well,
know that her,
there was like
oh, God.
one sentence that she was writing on one of the pieces of paper. She was like, "I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive myself." So it kind of does lead you to like, oh, maybe she
Okay.
had something to do with her friend's death.
I couldn't quite piece it together. And then, like she sees her friend's parents at the cemetery, and then again after something happens, which we can get into that, but um, but you can tell it's like she doesn't want to see them, or she doesn't want to be seen by them.
Well, it seems like she doesn't
And
want to be seen by anybody in the town because, like, at the beginning of the movie, she's kind of practicing this smile and wave, and then it like
mhm.
she's going. It seems like she maybe like does stuff on Etsy, sells dresses, and she's going to drop off some envelopes in a post box, and she stops by this house, and like this guy looks at her, and she kind of like smiles and waves, and he's just like, ugh, and like walks away.
Yeah, and there was a little scene like it seems like she's like semi obsessed with like old fashioned stuff,
Yeah, because
retro vintage stuff,
yeah,
clothing
that's
especially.
I was because at first I was like, oh, okay, this movie seems like it's gonna take place in like the 50s or something, just the way her house was and the clothes she's
Hmm.
wearing, and then she gets in her car and makes it into town. I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is definitely
It's
modern
just
day. That's
her
just
personality, yeah.
yeah.
Like especially the clothes she designs, but she's into old timey music and stuff like 40s, 50s music, and she's playing it on like I almost think it's like a Victrola or something, but at least a record player.
Mhm.
Everything's kind of very old fashioned, and she's having a good time at her house. And the thing that got me was she's having this great time, and she's dancing to the music and stuff, and the phone rings, and she picks up the phone for just a second. It's just somebody screaming obscenity at her, like specifically directed at her. But you can't even really tell what they're saying, but you can tell this is at her, and it's very angry.
Mhm.
And she just picks it up and hangs it back up and dances back around. And I was like, something really strange is happening. Like nobody likes this girl, and I can't quite figure it out. And then when this alien invasion happens, and by the way, we should say this too. She's got like a little diorama of a town. Like she's got like a
Mhm.
little miniature town that she's made, and it's almost like this idealized perfect town because the world has shut itself off to her. So she's making this little perfect city on her own, and I think the aliens find particular interest in that, and we can get into that. But I think maybe she's repairing a piece. I should have gone back and rewatched this. I wasn't sure what was going on, but like there's like a clock tower or a bell tower or something like that she's got in her hand when or she picks it up, I guess,
Mhm.
during this invasion. and she just inadvertently ends up stabbing one of these aliens through the head with it, and he's dead immediately. And she's just shell shocked, traumatized in the corner, looking at this body. And when she finally comes to, like, it appears she just sits there wide eyed, awake all night. And then the next morning, she decides to go to the police, and this thing is like oozing some substance out of it. Like, it's pretty. This movie is capable of being pretty disgusting when it wants to,
Mm-hmm.
but she goes to the police station, and you can just, I'm at this point I've noticed there's no dialogue, and I'm wondering if this is where we're gonna get it. She's walking to the police station, and so how are you gonna pull this off without any dialogue? And she runs into the her friend's parents again, her deceased friend's parents again, and they just look at her with disdain, especially the mother, and the mother spits in her face, and she just sits there with the spit on her face, and the father goes to almost say like I'm sorry, or to comfort her in some kind of way. And there's this really subtle, and this is nice when a movie does this thing where you could almost miss it, but it does this subtle little thing where he does a look of sympathy for her, and then it changes to like this look of disgust. So
Mm-hmm.
he's disgusted by her too. So you know something is going on here with the death of the girl, but you don't fully understand it. And so throughout this whole home invasion, this is not just a home invasion. We find out like
Yeah.
this is happening everywhere at once, and almost every. I mean, it appears like they're winning. They're winning pretty rapidly, I don't know at what point you start to get the idea, but eventually you get the idea they don't even think they're the bad guys. Like they think they're here to help us, but they are being very successful, and she's the stubborn one that they just can't quite get. And at that point, I was talking about where the thing goes in her throat, and she wakes up the next morning, but it's really a hallucination. Well, this is her interacting with her friend that she misses so much, the dead friend that she misses so much. But she realizes that's not possible, and this is a hallucination, and it's done in a way where you can tell it's a hallucination from the standpoint of the person watching the movie. And she rips that thing out of her throat. She says, "I'm sorry," and she rips that thing out of her throat. And uh, so when she goes to every time she goes to flee, there's either more aliens or people who have these things in their throats that are coming to get her. They're very determined to get her on board with this, and I might be I get lost a little bit in it, and I'm leaving a couple things out. But at some point, it's over. She gets sucked up into one of the spacecraft, and she's like, I guess, psychically probed. Like they're not actually,
Yeah. They all just
yeah.
kind of like she's stuck in like this gravity field and can't move, and they all just kind of like reach out and tap her on the head, and then they like tap into her memories, and it shows basically what happened between her and her friend, which was I guess they were like some best friends, 12 years old, something like that, and they get
Mm-hmm.
into a little fight, and the friend pushes our main character to the ground. She grabs a rock and immediately gets up and hits her, which I'm assuming is what killed her and why everybody hates her. And then it was kind of weird from like this is the one gripe I have with the movie is kind of how like they see this and they're kind of just like, oh, we feel bad for her, let's just send her back down. Is kind of what it seemed like to me.
Yeah, I think essentially like they peer. This is what we're supposed to think. I think is that they see that the world has given up on her, shunned her away, and everything, and she's refusing their kind gift in their mind of they're going to fix the world and make this idealized world,
Yeah.
and run by slaves. I mean, like it's all going to be the only people left are going to be the people who accept the thing in their throat, But they're like, well, if you know what, they're kind of looking at that little city she made. They're looking at the situation, and you can almost, I mean, they're speaking their alien language, but you can almost see them being like, you know what, she's been through so much.
Yeah. Like
Let's
they
just, well, I think we can figure something out. And so it's like your only shot at like any semblance of a normal life is what we're gonna give you, which
Mhm.
is you can live on Earth with the other people that are left, but everybody but you is going to be controlled by these things in their throat, and it's all fake. But you're not fake, so you can kind of do whatever you want. So she kind of makes this like the world in her image a little bit, but
Mhm.
everybody's so fake and empty-eyed, and it's almost played for laughs. Like it's kind of a dark joke at the end where it's like it's just a big dance party and everybody's dancing like it's an old 50s 60s musical,
Right. And it's kind of
and
like the uh, reminiscent of the town that she made. It's kind of like this little square of this
And
idealized
everybody's
town
wearing
that
her kind
she's
of
made.
clothes, the vintage
Yeah,
clothes that she likes,
she
and
she couldn't be happier. But she's part of
yeah,
society again, even though it's like
and
controlled people.
and you could almost think that like okay, they've like made the Earth this way now, and it's like they think they, but when the camera pans up, they're still in the air, and I don't know if they're like we're done here and they're leaving us to our, or if it's like no, they're gonna like maintain a presence over who's left or
Right.
what's gonna happen exactly. I guess you can go wild with it, but I do think the point was that like she is left alone, but because there's this moment where she has like her smile kind of fades and she looks like a little concerned as well, and I think it's her knowing like the emptiness of this fake world that she's in, but for
So
the most part, I
yeah.
think she's gonna make the best of it because it's like, but it's funny. We kind of find her in not that different of a situation than she's in the beginning with her little fake, world in
Yeah.
her dining room or living room or whatever.
Because I mean, she is still alone, even though she's got these people around her. They're just like shells of people with alien things in their throats controlling them.
And I'll say this: I think that the either the budget was higher than you would think for this, or we've gotten better with CGI when it's not like rushed by big studios or something. Because for the most part, the CGI aliens didn't really bother me a whole lot in this. There's like no practical effects,
Yeah,
but I
there's
thought
only
it was
like
handled pretty well.
two parts that the CGI looked really kind of fake, and one of them was when she was reaching into her own mouth. The arm looked super fake.
I do remember that, the fire when she first starts the
Yep.
fire. So like the big praying mantis style fella, and actually this is a little bit of the gripe of, I guess of the storytelling or something here. I'm not sure. It's not that big a deal, but this giant thing seems so intimidating, and it's really just gonna get her. There's like no way away from it, but she runs in such a way to like lure it through a car, and it
Mhm.
gets just trapped in this unfamiliar territory of this car, and its legs are poking through and it punctures the gas tank and its head sticking out one side, and it's just trapped and tangled up in this car. But that almost doesn't resonate with like alien and level intelligence to me. I mean, you could just not run through the car. Like there's ways to get her without like getting all
Yeah,
tangled up in this car,
but
but whatever.
you could also say, since there were the different types of aliens, like the small little one with the claws, like is just like a murder machine, and maybe they don't have the intelligence that the other ones have because their eyes were different too. Like the
Yeah.
regular looking grays have just like the big glossy black eyes, and these ones had like tiny little eyes. So maybe they're just not as intelligent. They're just like the enforcers, like the brutes of the race or something.
But yeah, so it punctures the gas tank, and when she first lights the tank, the fire is very CGI fire, and
Yeah,
it doesn't look very good. But then the explosions are real pyrotechnic, so I was like, okay,
yeah.
it's really not that. Nothing was really that big a deal, especially considering, like I said, that this is this director's second movie ever. It's straight to Hulu. It could have been terrible,
Mhm.
and I thought they really did a good job with it. And where it started out a little clunky, and I'm not entirely sure where we're going here and how much I really like the thing that it's just kind of stereotypical grays. They certainly took the story in a different enough direction for me where I was like, I can appreciate this,
Mhm.
and yeah, I mean it's not the bleakest like A24 style ending ever, and the director has said that he didn't want the bleak A24 style ending where she dies too and everybody's just dead and the aliens win, but it's not that. I think he might be overselling how not bleak it is because
Right.
this is pretty bleak. I mean, they do win. Like the whole thing is under the guise of the human race is basically destroyed.
Yeah.
So if you think that's not a bleak ending, I mean, I don't think this is that happy of an ending for her. It's just like it's a pretend happy ending
Yeah,
where she
definitely.
she can choose to live in ignorance as long as she wants, but it's not gonna last forever. So yeah, highly recommend. What else is there to say? Anything else you want to add?
No, man, I think we covered it. Like I said, the creature design was really good. Like the gravity of the tractor fields or whatever they're using to pull them up were really cool.
Oh, I should say this. I mean, I think her name's Caitlin Deaver.
Mhm.
But the main actress here really had to carry a lot on her shoulders
It's
here,
true.
and it could have been handled by a worse actress. And yeah, she did it really well. And this movie kind of lived or died with her, and I think it works because she like all her acting had to be silent,
Yeah.
or at least wordless. And
Yeah, I'm surprised
I
at how much I liked a movie that had literally one line of dialogue.
now you got to watch Sisu,
Okay, yeah.
uh, but this is way less than Sisu. It's just the main character doesn't talk on Sisu,
Mm.
but but yeah, uh, yeah. Again, to not to have a whole movie with no dialogue except one line, which I meant to ask you if you could remember what the one line is because I meant to go back and rewatch it or just rewatch it to find this, but I don't remember what the one audible line is. But there
It's
is one line.
it's when she says I'm sorry to her friend.
That is it.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay. Yeah. What do you give this little flick?
Oh man, I'd probably give it like a seven. Yeah, probably a seven. It's a good horror movie, fresh take on something that, and like I said, for being able to watch a silent film, basically not silent film because there is music and stuff, but no dialogue, and enjoy
Mhm.
it that much, I give it a seven.
I think I would go a little higher and even give it a 7.5. I just had so much fun with it, and by the end of it, I felt like this feels like an easy one to recommend to people.
Yeah,
If you're a fan of sci-fi or horror at all, this is not a hard sell. And whether we choose to talk about it or not, I don't. It seems like we're not going to, but we did just watch a movie called El Conde on Netflix. Uh, Maybe you'll hear about more about that in the future. Probably not, but but whether you like or dislike that movie, it's like a complicated sell. Like
yeah,
it doesn't just immediately appeal to people. And I think this is just so unique. But also, I think you benefit too from like going into this without knowing much. So hopefully, if you haven't seen this, you're not listening to me right now because you probably should have gone in a lot blinder than you are now.
right.
But but yeah, 7.5 for me, 7 for you. Uh, yeah. So certainly comment below if you have seen this before. We want to hear from you about that. If you haven't seen it, what's your favorite sci-fi horror that's ever been made? Maybe give us a list. I don't know. Do whatever
Yeah.
you want. Uh, and certainly like this video if you liked it, got something out of it. Share it with your friends if you know somebody that would appreciate it as well. And yeah, again, subscribe if you haven't already. And we appreciate you watching as always. And we'll see you in the next one, guys.
We'll see ya.